about, seeing more of that. And I also wonder if you could talk more about the cultural aspect, that when we're talking about there are artists, but then also this cultural theme that goes with Exeter. If you could just, sort of touch on that, how do you think that ties in with the mission of this committee?
I mean, obviously, there are so many really strong cultural people doing between the Independence Museum and the Historical Society. I mean, and having connections with PEA. I mean, there's so much to the culture that goes on in and around Exeter that I would love to just get everybody kind of more on the same page, right? Kind of having conversations with everybody and making sure that there's nobody that isn't highlighted, and that we can kind of be creative with other community, like other parts of our community.
Thank you so much. And I, again, really appreciate you putting your name forward here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Selectman Darrell Brown has joined us. Good evening, Selectman Brown.
Hi there. Sorry I'm late, everybody.
That's okay. And are you alone in the room? Or?
I am.
Okay. We were just speaking with Mary Page Provost, who's applied for the Arts and Culture Committee, and I know you've had an opportunity to look at her application. Did you want to take an opportunity to ask any questions at this time?
I do not. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mary Page, thanks again for your interest, and I know you're going to bring a lot to this committee. I think we have one or two more interviews, but we're going to start deliberating within the next meeting or so, and start to appoint people, and we'll be back in touch with you. Certainly, in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks again for your interest.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I move that the select board meet in non-public session under RSA 91A-3, Roman numeral 2, and section L.
Okay, we have a motion to enter into non-public session. Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call vote?
Yes. Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectman Brown?
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. We have a separate invite in our mailbox, so we need to X out of this meeting and enter into that meeting for the non-public, and then we'll be back here. So I'll see everybody in a few minutes.
people
My
here.
God, this is worse than elevator music. It's like working with all. We need a playlist for when we have really long out of session conversations. I'm just trying to be loud enough so that folks know that they should come back now. I imagine they've all walked away from their computers.
I know.
You had to vote to come out.
I know Chief Wilkins like, oh, you've returned.
Yes, welcome back.
Hi, Chief.
Riveting music for an hour. Yeah, good evening.
we'll put in a notice,
Okay.
that, we need a playlist that varies up a touch.
There you go.
Are we live yet?
Can everyone? Okay, everyone's back. Dan, are we live?
Yes, you're.
The board's returning from a non-public session. Before we get into regular business at this time, I would entertain a motion to seal the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, and we have Joanna Bartella, Recording Secretary. Good evening, Joanna.
Good evening. If you need to know, I'm alone in the room.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you everybody for your patience. We can proceed with our agenda. And this is public comment, an opportunity for the public to weigh in and address the board. We do ask, though, that if your comment is relative to something on the agenda, you wait till that agenda item comes up. I will pause for a moment to see if there are any hands. Okay, and seeing none, I will close public comment. We do not have any proclamations or recognitions this evening. We do have two sets of minutes to approve. We can start with the January 19th, 2021 Select Board minutes. I'll ask if anybody has any amendments to these minutes. I have one, but anybody? No. On page 10 of the January 19th, 2021 Select Board minutes, under Article 13, pertaining to the public safety study, quote, it says they couldn't do a feasibility study by September to have a discussion with BRC this fall. That was attributed to Chief Wilkin, and I believe Chief indicated that they could. So if we could revise the couldn't to read could. And with that revision, I would look for a motion to approve the January 19, 2021 Select Board minutes as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Chair. Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Passes unanimously. And then I would look for, first, are there any amendments or revisions to the January 25th, 2021 Select Board meeting minutes? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the January 25th, 2021 Exeter Select Board minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We do not have any appointments this evening. We can jump right into our discussion items. Mr. Moderator, good evening.
Good evening, all.
Thank you for your patience tonight. Well done on Saturday. Want to give us a quick update?
Thanks. Nothing really outrageous. I was very pleased with what the high school and Mr. Lister, the high school AV, whatever they call him, the tech person now, plus our tech person, Bob Glowacki, did a spectacular job to get everybody that wanted to show up there and be able to hear and see what was going on. I'm sorry that there was only 30 some odd people there, which is sad, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Other than that, everything went pretty well. I just want to say that come March 9th, our election is going to be just like it was in November, so there's going to not be any changes there, and everybody can just anticipate doing it the same way. We are going to open, I'm planning on opening the absentee ballots on Friday before the election. That way there, it gives us the opportunity if somebody makes a mistake or doesn't sign the affidavit or whatever, for whatever reason, we can call them and give them the weekend to get back in and fix their absentee ballot. And other than that, we'll be open from 7 in the morning to late at night on Tuesday the 9th. And I think we'll be ready to rock and roll without any problems.
Mr. Chair, can I just make one clarification there?
Please.
Or ask for clarification, Paul. Just to be sure people understand, you're not actually opening up the ballot.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We're pre-processing. Correct. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, all we do is pre-process, and by that is opening the outside envelope and making sure the affidavit envelope is signed and there is an affidavit envelope in there. But you're right. We are not counting the ballots. We're just pre-processing them to get them checked in and ready for Tuesday. Thanks, Julie.
Paul, we have 2 board meetings before the election, 22nd of February and March 1st. Would you like to be on either agenda to go over voting?
That's up to you guys. If you want me, you pick one. I'll be happy to do it. It's your call, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to do either one.
All right. Why don't we pencil you in for March 1st? We'll do it real quick like we've done for the others. Just to remind folks. Great. Thank you. And again, the staff, you're absolutely right. The staff from both the town and school did a fantastic job. I think they probably spent more time setting up and breaking down than we did actually deliberating.
Oh, without a doubt. They were there at 5 a.m. Saturday.
They did a wonderful job. And thank you again, Mr. Moderator, for your decades of service to the town.
My pleasure. Thank you all. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
You too, Paul. Thanks. Okay. Moving along, we have a street name recommendation from the E911 committee. Mr. Sharples, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
You want me to go ahead?
Please, yeah.
Okay, thank you. The E911 committee recommended naming a private driveway, and the recommendation was to name the private driveway that will access one new home on tax map 70 lot 12 Reservoir Drive. And if the board does make a motion, you can use the recommendation as the motion. The planning board approved, as a little background, the planning board approved a 2-lot subdivision that was off Thornton Street and Rocky Hill Road. One of the lots is accessed via Rocky Hill, the other is Thornton. The lot accessed via Thornton Street could only be given a Thornton Street address if we renumbered the entire street. There was no numbers left. So, and the home is set back because there's like a 50-foot access point because it's a pretty large lot. It was like a 23-acre lot or something. So the access point is like 50 feet. So you can't build a house until you get behind the existing houses there. So we felt the least impactful approach would be to just name the private driveway instead of renumbering everyone on Thornton Street. So we reviewed the name Reservoir Drive as submitted by the applicant, and we checked both Kensington and Brentwood street directories, and there is no Reservoir Drive there because we share the same zip code. And we also reviewed the Exeter street list and did not find any existing street name that is confusingly similar to Reservoir. So we would recommend the board adopt the recommendation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Selectwoman Gilman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sharples. I do have a question that we're naming a street, and it's going to a large piece of land eventually. Or, well, it could possibly go to a large piece of land. So, can we make any requirement that it be built to town road standards, given that it's just a driveway?
Can you, so clear on the question, are you asking if we can require it to be built to town standards? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
My answer would be no, because it's being proposed as a driveway. If it was being proposed as a public roadway to access, like during a subdivision, to access more than one lot, then we require that. We require it to be built up to standards. But so while as long as it remains a single driveway to a single lot is what it's being represented, then I don't believe we would want to require that it's built, 24 feet wide with sidewalks and so forth.
But in the future, it may have to change. If
someone goes and tries to subdivide the land and goes through the process,
yeah.
Then we would then require that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Sharples or any discussion? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to name the private driveway that will access one new home on tax map 70 lot 12 Reservoir Drive.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Sharples.
Thank you all.
Okay, next we have an update or a continued conversation relative to the Squamscott River Siphons project that we discussed at our last meeting. We have DPW Director Jennifer Perry here, as well as Matt Berube from Water Sewer and Mr. Vlasic. Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, we were before you 2 weeks ago on on January 25th to provide you with an update of the sewer siphons crossing the Squamscott River. And at that time, we had discussed returning to provide you with an update on our progress over the last 2 weeks. And it has been a very busy time. We have made some progress. And I'd like Paul Vlasic, our town engineer and project manager on this project, to provide you with an update.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, Paul.
Okay. After the last meeting, we certainly found out that this project now is more than just adding extra capacity in our system from that area of town. Now it's not only adding capacity, but we have to make sure that the entire conveyance system will work once we're done. So over the last 2 weeks, we've had some meetings with our consultants to come up with some options. And also we've had a couple of discussions with New Hampshire DES. We had discussions with the compliance folks, the design folks, and the construction folks. So let's start with the pipes themselves, because we were trying to explore what can we do now with the funding that we have, or when are we required to do anything. And one of the discussion items centered around the condition of the pipe itself. And you might recall some of the photos that we had on the inside of the pipe. And we were only able to see the inside of the pipe. We don't know what condition the outside of the pipe is. And certainly with holes in the pipe is not in good condition. What we also know is there could be some infiltration into the pipe, and there's a possibility of some of the effluent exfiltrating out of the pipe. Also, what we know that this situation did not occur overnight, and it has probably been this way for a little while. So with that, part of that comes into discussion later with the New Hampshire DES folks. So our consultants came up with basically 4 approaches on what we might consider moving forward. One was the directional drill of that extra pipe that goes from the J.D. Hill side of the Squamscott River over to the main pump station in Swayze Parkway. And with that, there was many convolutions of what size pipe, and if you do this particular fix first, what some of the options might be on the second phase of this. So in these 4 categories that I'm going to mention, there was actually 15 different options that we were considering. The other big idea was to go ahead and do some of the slip lining of the siphons that have the defects and issues within them. The third was to try to consider some force main options in case of DES might require us to institute a pipe of how we can take care of this problem in the short term. And then lastly, wait and try to get extra funding for whatever the ultimate solution is. So after that discussion, we forwarded some of the information to the DES folks. And with those couple of discussions that we had, they wanted us to know that they certainly recognize the efforts that the town has made with the funding and construction of the new wastewater treatment facility, the upgrade of the main pump station and the 2 force mains that go from the main pump station out to the wastewater treatment plant. And they're hopeful that those upgrades will lessen the CSO usage that would go in extreme storm events, flows over to Clemson Lagoon. They also mentioned our I&I projects too, where we're removing some of this extraneous non-sewage type flows from our system. With that, in talking on some of the options, we were unsure how to proceed on some of the options because of the DES guidelines and the rules and regulations that are specific to maybe the velocity of the pipe or redundancies and that kind of stuff. But what they said to us, number one, is that we'll look at this on a case-by-case basis. We know that you're trying to get the best solution long-term. So if for one of your phase 1 attempts one of your first phases is to go ahead and do a certain fix that may not meet a certain requirement, but in the long term it will, they could approve a situation like that. So that was good news for us in several of the options. And then they also talked about the task. The DES is right now providing us flexibility on phasing of the project. What we heard so far, and these are just discussions right now, that if possible, proceed with the project in a way that provides part of the solution for the ultimate fix. But they also put in one little caveat too, is that if there's considerable savings on an economy of scale, that they may entertain waiting for any improvements until the full funding is obtained. but there'd have to be a real considerable savings for that option. So with that, we have a couple of suggestions on how to proceed. First off, get some better estimates than we're working with now. Of course, when we got 15 options, where we can't do a lot of detail in all those estimates, but let's see if we can get some better estimates, at least for the most favorable options. Certainly discuss those options to come up with our preferred ones. In the meantime, we think that we should start developing a contingency plan. I know that there were some discussions last time that if there was failure in one of the siphons, what would we do? Or if both siphons failed, what would we do? And I think it would be good to start planning out specifically the tasks that we would do so we could shelve that in case something drastic happened as we're going through the fixes for the project. And then lastly, when we finally settle down on a option to then put that funding request into the next CIP, the 2020 CIP. And so I think we've gained a little bit of breathing room here. And I think we've got a game plan on how to proceed. Any questions?
Any questions for Jennifer or Paul? So Jennifer, Paul, what would be the next steps?
It would go back and then fine tune some of the estimates on the options. Certainly discussion of those options because there's a risk with all of those. So a risk benefit discussion would need to happen. And and start immediately too on coming up with the contingency plan if there is a failure in one of the siphons.
And what's the time estimate?
I think that we could probably nail down the preferred option probably in about a month and a half.
And what is the is there any risk in the meantime?
Well, there certainly when we saw the condition of the siphons, that we know that they're not in the greatest shape. So is there some risk? Yeah, there's some risk. But I mentioned early on in this little discussion here that the condition of the pipes, it didn't happen overnight, and there is not a drastic problem with them like imminent failure right now. But to say that there is no risk would be not truthful at all. So there is some risk, but I think we've got at least a direction to head into in case, number one, there is a problem, and two, the ultimate fix.
And I'd just like to add another point that we're considering in the mix is the fact that the siphons are embedded in marine clay. That's the material at the, we're talking 6 feet below the level of the river or below the base of the river. And New Hampshire DES Shellfish Program is regularly monitoring water quality, and they have not at this point detected anything that would indicate any kind of a sewer outbreak. And I think that also kind of colors New Hampshire DES's flexibility. There's not an imminent or there's not an immediate exfiltration event going on. It's not like they've already detected it. I think we talked about that a little bit last meeting. And I think that's important because, as Paul said, these conditions don't happen overnight. That kind of corrosivity or pitting corrosion that you see on the inside of the pipe has been going on for quite a while. So, we can't predict, the consultants can't predict, and neither can New Hampshire DES, when those pipes might fail. Complete catastrophic failure. It could be years before they do. And that's why we're proposing developing a contingency plan that we'll have ready to roll out on relatively short notice, but to continue to work out what are the best alternatives for the town. Looking at not just the short-term, remediation aspect, but also looking at the long-term opportunities to get the project done at the lowest price and get everything done, including the remediation and the developing capacity for future, which was what was driving this project from the beginning.
And are you confident that, and I know you're still getting estimates, but are you confident that there'll be enough money that was set aside? You talked the last time what money was remaining on this project without having to seek additional funds. Are you confident that we have enough money left over, number one? And number two, can we get any relief from the state?
Well, the
financial relief.
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
I meant financial relief from the state.
So the cost estimates are still being refined. As Paul said, we have better than order of magnitude cost estimates, but they do need some additional working. Mm-hmm. And I would say at this point, no, there's not adequate money to do everything, including remediation, including developing a contingency plan, and developing the long-term capacity development. So we would be looking at having to go back before the 2022 town meeting for a new number. But we do have adequate funding to do the contingency plan, continue to do some type of approach, whether it's short-term remediation or we're dealing with it in the long term. It will be ultimately folded in to the project. And your question, if there's relief, DES certainly is aware of this, and they know that we've been very active in the many of the grants programs, and this was also in the grants program. So they know that there is some funding available, but their numbers are still, they're not firm, and they haven't made us a firm offer. But I'm sure that they have us in mind for anything that could potentially become available. And there's a lot going on right now with infrastructure investment from the federal level too. So they know that we have our open palms out and asking for any assistance that we can get.
So Jennifer, one last question from me anyway. And I'm not an engineer, so I'm going to overgeneralize this, but from the last conversation, didn't we discover this quite by accident when they were doing the audits within the pipes? Because I think you had said we don't have the equipment or the technology to do it ourselves, but the audits were being done of the pipes, and this was just sort of discovered. Did I recollect that correctly?
Well, we did find this out as the consultants had hired contractors to do cleaning and televising of those siphons, because we had intended to repurpose those 2 8-inch siphons and put in one new third larger siphon. That was always the plan. Mm-hmm. When they started doing the cleaning in order to be able to televise, that was when we first got an inkling something might be wrong. As Paul explained the last time, we call them pigs. They're basically foam bullets that are forced through the lines, and it scours the internal components of the mains. Those came out torn up. And after they were pushed through multiple times and there was a lot of material coming through, meaning gritty rocks, sand material. That was an indicator that there probably was some kind of a break in the integrity of the pipe. It was only when they televised it that we could see what you saw in those shots that Paul shared last week with, breaks in the pipe, pitting in the pipe, and water infiltrating into the pipe. So that was, up until then, no, we didn't have any idea that the pipe was in that condition, or we would have been proposing replacement of these pipes quite a while ago.
Thank you. Any questions for Jennifer or Paul? So when do you think it would be reasonable to have you back, Jen, for an update?
Well, we want to make sure that we do get good recommendations, detailed costing from the engineers. And as Paul said, that's probably going to take a month. I would say 5 to 6 weeks out if you're on a every other week schedule, or did you make a shift in March around?
We made a quick shift, so it would either be March 1st or March 15th. Or even the end of March.
I'm sure that by the end of March, we would have a complete analysis done. I'd say that would probably be the best time to reserve for. And if we have information available sooner, we could ask to be on that meeting. But I hate to just give you kind of a repeat of what we've done.
No. I mean, it's going to be all right. So then we'll circle back. And in the meantime, if something else, comes up, then, reach out. We can put you on the agenda.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have our COVID-19 updates. Chief Wilkin, you're always right in my view, so
no, you're always below my view. I don't know how I end up in your lasers, but good evening, Chair. Good evening, Board, and I'd like to share some good news with you. As reported by the Governor and the state of New Hampshire, things are looking better here. In fact, today we had our best day in almost 3 months with only 121 new cases. Obviously, one is too many, but when you see numbers over 1,000, you look forward to days like this. But so the numbers in statewide, Rock County, and Exeter have all been trending in a much more positive nature. We're getting farther and farther away from the holidays and the seasons that were predicted to kind of lead to some spreading and some transmission of the virus. But let's hope good news continues. I did a little piece on here, and if you had a chance to read the report that was posted, we've been tracking and, if you will, trending this since March of last year. I still firmly believe that decisions made by this board and later by the governor of the state of Hampshire are leading toward some of the great work we've done. I need to step up and commend our citizens and visitors for doing the right thing. It's not easy. Hearing constantly to social distance, to wash your darn hands, to not gather with friends and family. Those are the last things people want to hear about month 10 or month 11, but they still hold true. We're diligently working through the vaccination process. I was at the site today. We're pushing over 500 people a day through the site. The Exeter site is operating 7 days a week now. The 2 days that we're off are now being used to offer vaccinations to those that were having difficulty with their second vaccination dates. Many times it's been pushed out into March and April, well beyond the 28 days that were recommended. So the state looked statewide and they stepped up. That has caused a shortage of vaccinators. So a number of the organizations such as ours, and I don't want to make it sound like only the larger departments were tapped, because Epping, Brentwood, East Kingston, everybody's contributing personnel. It's just that the bigger communities of Portsmouth, Dover, Exeter, Hampton have more people to help. So we're helping daily at the site to push this through. Over the course of the year, I've been kind of comparing ourselves to our community, to our like communities, and I wanted to share some of that in this report, just to kind of benchmark where we are and the positivity we see. And as of Friday, Exeter had 589 citizens that had tested positive for COVID. Thankfully, the vast majority have come through it and are in different stages of recovery. But just to compare us to all the communities of like size, I'd say, when I say like size, 13,000, 14,000 people upwards to 16, 17. You can see in the report that the closest community to Exeter is Laconia with 711, and it goes up markedly when you get down into Rockingham County, Hillsborough County, when you see communities like Hooksett with 900 and Pelham with 950 and Wyndham with over 1,000. So you try to measure the things we've done, the decisions we've made, and the asks we've had of our citizens. And I think you can see it has all paid dividends, and it will continue to if we could just, work together and push this thing over the finish line, hope in the next few months. From an operational standpoint, PPE is strong. The supply chains have caught up, if you will. It's funny, Chief Paisan mentioned a week ago that we've been receiving orders that we placed back in March and April of last year. Thankfully, the state had filled in the meantime, but we certainly took delivery of the masks and the gowns that we'd ordered, and they're moving along. Test kits for rapid tests are delivered when asked. All that's still in good supply. Things we're hearing from the vaccination site is some of the ancillary supplies are becoming a little short-staffed. It's not, I guess it's concerning, but not overly right now. Things like Band-Aids, alcohol swabs, and actually needles to administer the vaccines are in shorter supply. I won't say shorter supply than the vaccine itself. So we're making sure we have that here in town. I see James just popped on, but James has been fielding dozens of questions a day. I know there are some citizens frustrated with the VAMS, the VAMS system that the CDC created. It is a clunky, cumbersome system, and if you're not good at computers, if you don't do well with email, it can be frustrating. So people are calling James looking for help. We are able to verbally talk many people through the process, but I just urge citizens of the town that if they truly are seeking help and having issues, 211, the call center is staffed by hundreds of people in Concord. They are better equipped to help you through than we. Many of us, James hasn't registered himself, so so we haven't been on the system. So we're kind of shooting blind when we're trying to help people. But we will take calls and we will direct them in the very best way we can so we all get the vaccine. Lastly, I guess we're all healthy right now. We have no cases of COVID, haven't since the holidays. We're still being tested twice a week, and things are going well. And yeah, the deliberative session's past news. I guess it was well. I know it wasn't the deliberative session we all were looking to host, if you will, but given the circumstances, I think it went off pretty well, and only time will tell if everybody remains safe throughout. But I'll stay on for any questions you may have, and I just saw James pop up, so if he has anything to share, I'd gladly yield the floor to James.
Sure. Before we hear from James, any questions for the chief? Great. Chief, thank you so much.
Thank you all for your support, and look forward to working with this someone.
Great. Hi, James. Oh, I'm sorry. Selectwoman Gilman has her hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I got to it late. Chief Wilkins, have you heard anything about the state moving away from the VAM system so we can actually process it a lot faster and get people with their dates, the second date, the same day they get their first shot?
Yeah, I have. I honestly thought that second date at the first shot would start today. There's been some chatter that early this week they were going to begin that process, but when I spoke to Captain Miller and others there today, it did not start today. Honestly, I've heard numbers from our dates as early as this week to a full transition to a homegrown system at the end of 1B. So that puts it into March. So I don't want to give false hope, but yeah, absolutely. I will continue to report where we are. But that is, to your end, Julie, that is absolutely the direction the state is going. It's just how fast we can get there to eliminate some of the frustration is unknown right now.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, James, good evening.
Good evening, board. I think the chief pretty much covered most of it. Like you said, I have been fielding a lot of calls and emails from people a little frustrated with the VAM system. I'm trying to work with them as best I can. A lot of the specifics about the system I don't have access to, unfortunately. And unfortunately, I do have to direct them to 211, which has been fairly backlogged. So there is some frustration there, unfortunately. Otherwise, I did get a question today about outdoor dining this summer. So some of our food establishments are already looking toward the summer, toward the warmer weather, which we're supposed to get snow tomorrow. So I don't know how far away that might be, but it is something that we will have to take into consideration soon with the spring and better weather at some point. The food establishments in town are looking for some guidance on that. So that's something that I'm willing to work with other departments on. Just want to put it on your radar for now.
Perfect.
Otherwise, I don't have anything else to update. I think the chief covered most of it.
Great. Any questions for James? Fantastic. Thanks for all your help, James. And next we have Greg Bisson and Melissa Roy from Parks and Rec.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. A couple things that we have in your packet. We submitted a couple memos for you guys to peruse. With the good weather actually right around the corner, and if James is getting those calls for outdoor dining, we're actually anticipating getting a lot more calls for events and programs. So, as you know, most of our buildings are shut down, and if you go through, community events are really on the tip of my tongue here, because honestly, we already got a few inquiries for our buildings, but we wanted to make sure, and I chatted with James last week. One of the things with the age of our buildings, I think opening them up too quickly would not be good. So we would recommend keeping them closed for the foreseeable future until we can really get a grasp on the numbers. And the warmer weather, for instance, if we could open up and actually ventilate some of the buildings, which we can't. But it's the outdoor events, Swayze Parkway. James has already been in contact with the farmers market. So people are going to be anxious to go outside. And as you remember, in September of last year, you guys voted to maintain all permitting. We just wanted to get that conversation going because there are quite a few events that I think will be wanting to pop up. One of them, of course, being our summer concert series moving down there this summer. But that's something I wanted to throw out to the board. If what your feeling is for events, I think it's too early right now, but trending forward, and we can always come back. I think any events would be a case-by-case basis and would come to you for approval. And that's really, for the event-wise, something we want your input on.
How many applications do you have so far, Greg?
As of right now, 0.
For anything, 0? Okay.
0.
And James, what are the current guidelines for indoor facilities?
For events at indoor facilities, I don't have the guidelines in front of me. I think there have been some updates since last fall, but depends on what we're looking at specifically.
Okay. And the state mask mandate is still in effect, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Comments from the board?
I would be interested in Parks and Rec developing some sort of event guidelines that you outlined here that follow state COVID protocols. I think that would be that would be certainly helpful as we start to, entertain some applications, I think it would be helpful to know what the guidelines are, what they look like, and to solicit your recommendations based on what you see in other communities and based on what the state is saying.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, we went through that at the end of, well, I don't know, in the spring when this first all started. Mm-hmm. So we do have a process already. It's just a matter of whether it needs updating or, or loosening up even.
Agreed.
And that's one thing that I know in Parks and Rec, we're a little frustrated with the task force. If you don't know, the task force has still been consistently meeting week to week. And for instance, we'll discuss summer camp in a bit. They will update the guidelines and they don't notify anyone. So unless you're like us that consistently check the guidelines, most people would be unaware when they get updated. So for instance, just recently, a couple weeks back, the youth sports guidelines were changed where masks are required now at all times for all sports. So there's when they're on the field, they can take them off. And then this Thursday, the task force will be discussing the draft guidelines for the summer camps. So the only reason we knew that is because we're heavily involved in it. With James, I would be happy to sit down and examine the festivals and events guidelines and kind of come up with recommendations. To Julie's point, it could be lessened, but in the two guidelines that we've actually looked at, they've made them stricter. Adding for instance, in summer camps, the kids will have to wear masks at all time, and we'll discuss that. So there's some things they've been lenient on, and there's some things that they've tightened up. So a year into this, it's still fluid, I should say.
Selectwoman Gilman, you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you.
No, you muted yourself.
Sorry, hit the wrong side of the screen. Do one or all of you listen to the task force calls? Because they seem to have kind of random people give testimony, and I still haven't figured out how they choose who testifies.
We have listened to them, not as diligent as we had in the past, but you are correct. For instance, when the summer camp discussion was first brought up, it was mostly representatives of the Camp Directors Association, which is primarily made up of overnight camps. There are 94 in the state of New Hampshire, and 4 of them opened last year. So it behooves them to have a seat at the table. They didn't exclude day camps, but we didn't really have a big voice in that presentation, Julie. So you are correct.
Melissa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Molly, you had said that you'd like guidelines. Do you mean in addition to the state guidelines with recommendations? Because you mentioned what other towns are doing. So are you looking for separate guidelines that you'd like us to propose, or you would just like us to update what we use, like Julie was saying, to make it in line and updated with what the state is doing?
Yeah, I thank you for the question. I would like to know what other towns are doing. So, and I think that you all do that pretty well. But with the introduction of, the restrictions or the loosening up of the guidelines, it would be super helpful to know that this document that we had you prepare last time, is that relevant? Has it changed? What are other towns doing? All of that stuff I think would be helpful to know as we go in and start making decisions for this summer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. So before we move on to summer camp and Parks and Rec programming, what particularly are you looking for from the board tonight with respect to permits?
Well, we actually, Mr. Chair, we just wanted to make you aware because we are anticipating a large influx of applications. So sure. I know you have a lot on your plate from week to week. So the earlier we can get this in your radar, the better. That way it's not surprising the board when suddenly we get 3 or 4 applications for the summer and now we're scrambling.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts from the board? I mean, right now it's winter. You're not going to, we're not going to be having any events in the near future. And presumably with the good news that the chief offered us, perhaps some of these restrictions will be lifted by springtime, at which time we'd probably be in a better position to maybe put the permitting back in your hands.
100%. And that's what we're hoping to anticipate, that the trend keeps going in this proper direction where we can handle it. And that's why, which leads us into programming, where we want to lessen the burden on you, the board, and kind of handle some of the permit or some of our programming more instead of having to come to you every couple weeks and asking for new programs, because Melissa and David are doing an outstanding job coming up with these niche boutique programs. But sometimes it's like, all right, we have this going on, let's do this. And instead of waiting for approval, if we follow the guidelines and this run our plan by James and Eric, I think the 4 of us combined could kind of come up with a safe alternative for any function that we have.
Okay, any discussion from the board on this request? So in other words, you're looking for, I mean, your motion, excuse me, you're looking for the authority to develop and execute recreational programming following the guidelines after conferring with James. So for example, the various spring sports, like with the winter sports.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. And if the board felt it was uncomfortable and they wanted to discuss first a larger program like that, I think, though, a year into COVID, and Eric can attest to this, we got a lot of the guidelines down and understand what we need to do to keep everyone safe and how to manage it if there is an outbreak.
Okay. Thoughts from the board? Melissa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing I would say going back to events is that there's a lot of planning involved in some of these events and for different communities, different community events, So I don't know how to say this. I know we can't offer approval too far in advance, but I hope we don't wait till only the spring to approve all of them, because it is very challenging for the applicant if they don't get enough time to plan.
No, I understood. Good point. Okay, well, having heard from Greg and Melissa, any board member wish to make a motion to allow Parks and Recreation the authority to develop and execute recreational programming that follows the state COVID-19 guidelines after Exeter Health officials approve the program?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
And Selectman Brown.
Aye.
And clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And a quick overview, Mr. Chair, if I could, and I'm probably going to have Melissa chime in more of this, because Melissa and David have been an integral part of the developing the Care Kids program last year. And so pivoting this year using the guidelines that we are anticipating will be approved, we feel we have a very safe alternative to Summer Adventure Camp. It will be Summer Adventure Camp 2021, but it won't be the same old Summer Adventure Camp because we do have safety guidelines. So Melissa, if you want to just touch base on just a few of the highlights that have changed from this year to last year.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I think you guys all remember we came to you last year and unfortunately had to cancel our program. At that time, we had 367 participants scheduled for the program. With the guidelines that we currently have and what we are expecting, because we have been given a draft of the current guidelines that they will be discussing this week. Unfortunately, we think we have to bring our capacity down to about 220 kids. We realize that that is going to leave some families out, and we're quite devastated about it. However, in order to make the environment safe with the amount of acreage that we have and programming available, that is the best thing that we can do, unfortunately. So what we would be doing is creating a lottery system for the residents that registered. We would be taking the teen program and putting it on hold for one summer. We'd be offering the programming from grades 1 through 7. It would be an 8-week program from 8 to 4. We would have to forego aftercare this year because one of the guidelines that we are getting the understanding from the state that they plan to keep is that the groups cannot commingle. So we would have a group of 20 kids, and those 20 kids couldn't participate with any other group. We'd also be making the suggestion because we're, again, been given a draft guidance of the guidelines, and we were told that masks will be required even outside. That was something that wasn't required last year. So those are some, excuse me, with the registration for the lottery, going back, each household will be given a randomly generated number. If they get their number called and they have more than one child in their household, the spots will be offered to everyone in that household. So it won't be, child A gets number 5 and child B is number 30. It's your family gets called and the people in your family. The caveat to that is in years past, we took open registration to a maximum number of people. Let's say we had 300 people or something. If we had 200 of them in group grade 5, we would just adjust our counselors to have a really big year at grade 5. Unfortunately, with state guidelines, we can't do that. We have to keep the groups of 20. So we have to pre-assign numbers, which we've already looked at and made a fair estimate of what grades will have the most amount of kids. But we're not going to be able to just take one more or take 2 more, which is something we pride ourselves in doing because we want to have the best customer service that we can. However, this year we're not going to be able to do that. So there will be 40 spaces available for grades 1 and 2. There will be 60 for grades 3, 4, grade 5, and grade 6, 7. And it will total, like I said, 220 kids. The other issue that we have is we have gone over this budget probably for about 3 months now, and we are having to raise the cost of the program substantially. We have to keep a lower staff to student ratio. We need to have enough backup staff to deal with anybody that has to quarantine. We have to bring in porta potties. We have to hire a cleaning company. So there's some pretty substantial costs. So the cost for 8 weeks this year will be $1,200 per child. And the goal is this is just related to COVID expense. It isn't to put anybody down when they're already down. It is just to deal with the COVID expenses. Let's see. I apologize. The pool, we're hoping the pool will be open this summer. We'll be allowing free swim, but it will not be open to the public at the same time as the camp. And we will be using a check-in and check-out process that involves pre-screening questions and a check-in, check-out. Parents will not be allowed out of the car. They'll pull into the parking lot, drop their children off, and they'll be escorted up to the property. We will be moving the main home base of the camp up to the stop baseball softball fields further up, so it won't be designated near the near Planet Playground. I'm sorry if I went too fast. There's sort of a lot of moving pieces, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments for Greg and Melissa regarding summer camp? Melissa, do you know if there's any COVID potential for COVID reimbursement?
So So last year we did get a grant. However, I have not been made aware yet that there would be grants available for summer camp. I am sort of constantly checking if that is something that we can find. The other issue is if we get closer to summer camp and they change the guidelines for the better, we can always go back and adjust the price or give refunds or something like that. Because like I said, the cost increase is for COVID expenses. And we would be happy to do that. We just don't want to give too low of a price and then backtrack and not know what to do. It's devastating and we feel terrible. We're adding usually we do a 4-month payment plan. We're adding 2 extra months to make a 6-month payment plan to try to help these families, because we do know the price increase is quite significant. One thing I will mention, it ends up being $150 a week per child. All of the other local programs, the closest one to us, I believe, is the Y in Exeter. I don't think it's not camp. Oh my gosh, the Y camp. I'm so sorry, I can't even think of it. But that's $220 a week, and from there they go up. So we're still substantially lower, but it's still a shock to any family that has multiple kids or even a single kid that isn't prepared for that price increase.
Any questions? All right, thank you for the update. You'll keep us posted.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and we hope to start the lottery this week, Mr. Chair. So parents should start looking out for. We're literally picking up the phone and calling every individual one. So it's going to be a little time-consuming process, but we will get through it hopefully in a few weeks, and that way people can plan for the summer.
Great. Well, thank you for the thorough job you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Okay. Moving on to regular business. We have a few veterans credits, an elderly exemption, and several solar exemptions. So, Madam Clerk, I will turn it over to you. You're muted.
I followed the instructions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would.
Madam Clerk, if I can interrupt real quick, we do still have a quorum for voting. Selectman Brown's having some computer issues. He's trying to get back on, but until then, it'll be the 4 of us.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Chair, I move to approve veterans credits in the amount of $500 for the following 2 properties: map 19, lot 16, unit 11, and map 115, lot 8.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
The chair says aye. The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
All right. Mr. Chair, I move to approve an elderly exemption for map 115, lot 8 in the amount of $236 and let me start over. $236,251.
Is there a second?
Second.
See no further discussion, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair, can I just vote for you all the time?
Sure. Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, and then we have a list of solar exemptions. It's getting lengthier. It's nice. For at map 24, lot 29, map 63, lot 247, map 19, lot 16, unit 6, map 98, lot 13, map 74, lot 108, map 98, lot 39, map 86, lot 75, map 651, map 65, lot 148, map 70, lot 10, map 81, lot 70, map 62, lot 44, map 29, lot 24, and map 70, lot 37.
Second.
I don't believe there needs to be a motion there because there's no money involved.
Okay, I withdraw my second.
Great, thank you. Okay, there are no permits and approvals, and we'll skip over the town manager's report. Select board committee reports. Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
We have a meeting coming up this Friday for the housing committee. So
thank you. All right. Selectwoman Gilman.
I have had no meetings. Next week is Heritage Commission and Historic District Commission. I want you people to save the date for February 19th. Wait, February 24th. Excuse me, for the Heritage Commission is going to do a neighborhood meeting about the Park Street area neighborhood heritage, Park Street neighborhood heritage area. And it's very informational about this new tool from the Division of Historical Resources to help the community get together and have really feel like they have some ownership in the preservation of their neighborhood without having to be a full-on historic district. And then I just wanted to run down as quickly as I can what's happening at the State House, because it's moving right along now. Today in my committee, we heard several kind of odd bills, like towns can't prohibit lemonade stands run by people under 17. It's the third time I've heard it. Tomorrow, the Judiciary Committee is having several bills that have to do with reproductive rights. My committee is dealing with a bill with a 2% tax cap statewide. And the Education has another Education Freedom Acts bill. On the 10th, the Education Freedom Acts bill continues. Criminal justice has some more firearms, and the judiciary has more reproductive rights. And then I think Friday's election law has redistricting. So please go to the State House website, nh.gov, and register your opinion on these bills. There's handy tools. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Selectwoman Cowan.
Yes, I had the Rec Advisory Committee, and you all just heard the update. They're working really hard to make sure that they can offer some sort of fun summer camp this year, which is great. And then we also had Planning Board, where the Brian Grisette property was scheduled and they pulled out, and we had a non-public session.
Great, thank you. I had a Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting last Tuesday, and we had Jennifer Perry as a guest speaker, who did a really wonderful presentation on recycling and the recycling program here in Exeter. And Selectwoman Cowan and Gilman, you'll remember that she gave that presentation a year ago, and things have changed since then. The good news is the clamshell plastic things that fruits and vegetables come in that were not recycling last year are now recycling again. So we can put them back in our bins and not have them take room in the blue bags. So the Sustainability Advisory Committee was very excited with the presentation, and I've invited Jen to consider doing that again for the select board, so that our folks at home can hear the update. And I believe on the 22nd, she'll be giving a presentation on Mr. Fox and a potential composting program pilot here in Exeter. So that was that meeting. And then Selectwoman Cowan, I took the Police Stakeholders Committee survey. And I just want to give another PSA to everybody. Please, if you haven't taken the survey, it's online. Please do so. The committee has worked really hard, spent many hours putting this together. So we're hoping to get as many surveys completed as possible. Reviewing our board calendar, we meet again on February 22nd, March 1st. We're doing back-to-back. We agreed at the last meeting because the election is March 9th, and I don't think any of us wanted to have a late meeting before work in the election. And then we'd meet again on March 15th. And finally, correspondence that I skipped over. We have 2 emails from Renee Allen. One is as her role as chair of the Energy Committee, announcing that they're going to bring a student liaison, which would be a non-voting member, but bringing 1 student per year to participate in the Exeter Energy Committee. And Selectwoman Gilman, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that a little bit.
Sure, I'm excited about that. And when the first iteration of the Energy Committee, we did have a liaison from, one from PEA, and we had another student from the high school, so we could get them to get working together. But it's going to be it's really nice. I know the high school is doing a couple of different programs or collections of people. I don't know how to put it, but the interaction between the school and the town, it'll be nice to have it more directly linked, even through a student who's going to already driving things at the high school. So
great.
We have a good person there. So.
Excellent. And then also an email from Renee Allen on February 19th. There's going to be a Zoom meeting to go over the Jude Hall Park Pocket Park idea on Swayze. It's going to be an informational session on February 19th at 7 p.m. And the last piece of correspondence, I'd like to end on good news. A thank you from the United States Census 2020, recognizing the town of Exeter as an invaluable member of the 2020 Census Community Partnership and Engagement Program. The Census appreciates the efforts that the town of Exeter made in making the partnership program a success and helping achieve a successful 2020 census. So, hi, Selectman Brown. We just went over committee updates. I don't know if you had any.
Just Police Stakeholders Committee. I don't know if Selectwoman Cowan already updated you. The survey is published on the website. And then Facilities Advisory Committee met and just discussed possible options regarding our handling of the recommendations, but I don't think anyone brought anything up at deliberative session, so no outcome there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any further comments or discussion from the board before we look to adjourn? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Roundtree-Olaf.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectman Brown. Clerk says aye. Clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. We stand adjourned. Good night. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Be well.